I've been watching a few videos, some of the debates that you had over Gaza over the last couple of years, and
scandalous
there's
allegations.
lots of stuff going on in those videos. And now, obviously, you're representing the Israeli side. You've got to get the message out about the Israel image and what the truths are on the ground in Israel. The first question, just to play devil's advocate for a second, when someone throws the argument at you, well, Hamas may be a terrorist organization in your mind, but they were elected. What is your response to that?
Okay, we'll go to the first part of your question
Sure.
first of all, which is, you take the pro-Israeli side. And I think one of the things which is coming out today is that it's not a pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian, it's pro-peace. In the same way the Israeli government said, I would believe in a Palestinian state. The only issue is that my house is we're in kilometers here, aren't we?
Yes.
So I'm 1 kilometer, my house is 1 kilometer away from what would be an independent Palestinian state. So I'm pro-Palestinian. I want to have border. Peace would be even better. But we have to talk about Israel's security. So number one, I think, is to try and reframe, which is what I've been trying to do here, reframe this idea of pro-Israeli, pro-Palestinian. I don't think today is Israeli or Palestinian. I think it's between extremists and pragmatists, people who want to move forward on the peace process and those people who don't. Hamas may have been democratically elected, and I would perhaps question that. There was an election, but they took over the Gaza Strip by force, by a military coup. That's okay, but at the end of the day, they're still an organization which calls for the destruction of the Jewish state, doesn't recognize a two-state solution, subjugates its own people to humiliation and torture. And we had at the beginning, I remind you, as I'm sure you were covering, it was at the beginning of the Gaza war, we had about 100 or so Fatah members trying to get over the border because Hamas was killing them. Right. So Hamas is a unique entity which tries to spread Islamic law throughout the whole of, one, Israel, and two, further afield, which is also why they're a danger to some of the other Arab countries as well.
Where is, and you speak about moderates on both sides, and pro-peace Palestinians, pro-peace Israelis, where is Palestinian civil society today? How would you describe it? Is it emergent? Is it there? In the West, I guess, when we're not on the ground here, we don't see necessarily the moderates, we only get the extreme media views.
Well, I think it's interesting what you're saying, is I think a lot of the voices which you hear in Canada, the Galloways of this world, for example, don't represent anyone but themselves. There is a silent, I don't know if it's majority or minority, of Palestinians, together with a louder majority of Israelis, who want to move and try and build a better future for both Israeli and Palestinian children, and so there would be some hope. The trouble is, on their side, they can't march on the streets, because they're oppressed by the extremists of Hamas and people who disagree with them. Quietly, they will sit down, talk, disagree, and not disagree, but try to work towards some form of understanding and shared values.
How does that work then on the West Bank? It's not there's no Hamas, oppressing people on the West Bank. You have Abu Mazen, you have Fatah, but where is the civil society in the West Bank in your view right now?
Look, there's a conflict situation. One of the problems that we have is I don't think there's enough integration between Israelis and Palestinians on a contact level. What we do see, though, is that life goes on. And a lot of what doesn't make the media is the interaction between Israelis and Palestinians. I drive through the West Bank every day. I don't live in the West Bank, I drive through it. And you see very strange things. You'll see Palestinian selling their food to ultra-Orthodox Jews from the settlement next door. If you go to Gush Etzion, they've opened up Rami Levy, which is a supermarket where both Palestinians and Israelis are together. So a lot of that's kind of boring, doesn't make the headlines, but that's also the reality on the ground, and perhaps a reality which Palestinians don't feel happy to talk about. Mm-hmm.